A graph must have certain information which is important. So there are certain things that a graph has to have. Otherwise, it's missing information and it can't give us everything we need to know. So the first thing your graph must have is a title. So this is a heading or a name for your graph. The title must refer to the information on the graph. So it must be about what the graph is about. It can't just be a random heading. It must tell us. So by reading the heading or the title, we know what the information is about on the graph. So an example would be the most popular color of the teacher's cars. So if we had that as a heading, the most popular color of the teacher's cars, we would immediately know that that bar graph is specifically about popular colors of teachers' cars. The next thing, there must always be a y-axis, which must be labeled from the bottom. Usually we start with 0, not always, but usually. So we start numbering it at the bottom and we go up in numbers. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, or 2, 4, 6, or 5, 10, 15, 20, or 10, 20, 30. It can be in different intervals, in other words, in different numbers that we're counting in, but it's usually the numbers that are labeled on the side, and that is your y-axis. It's the one going from top to bottom, the vertical one. Okay, there must be an axis from left to right. So the x-axis runs from left to right. That is your horizontal axis. And you write the different colors on that axis, or the different names of whatever we're looking at. So if we're looking at the colors, or if we're looking at shapes, or if we're looking at birthdays, or the months, or years, whatever it is, goes on the x-axis at the bottom. So usually the words, the labels, go on the x-axis at the bottom, and the y-axis running from top to bottom. On the side is usually the numbers. Each axis must have a word or a heading to summarize the information. So we have to give each axis a title, a heading, to tell us what it's about. So for this example, our y-axis on the side would be amount, because we were counting how many cars are of a specific color. And the x-axis will have colors, because we are looking at the colors of the teacher's cars. So on the next slide, I'm going to show you what I mean. Alright, so here we have an example of a bar graph. So you will see there's different little arrows with numbers. So I'm going to go through and explain it to you. So you just need to look at the arrow and the number that's next to it with the words, because that's what I'm going to explain. So if you look at this graph, we've got the bars, we've got the axes, we've got the heading and all the stuff that we need. So the first thing we look at is the heading. So number 1, you'll see it's the title of the graph, the heading, the grade 3's favorite color. Okay, so we're not doing the example, we're doing a different one. So we're looking at the favorite colors of the grade 3's. That's our heading. Now we're going to look at number 2, which is this y-axis on the side here. So that is the next thing we need. We first need to have a y-axis drawn in, going from bottom to top. Then, number 3, we need to name that axis. We need to give the y-axis a heading. And this one is also called number. You will see that it starts at 0, because otherwise if it starts at 1, we miss counting that one. So we go from 0 to 1, that's one jump, and so on and so forth. Then number 4, we need an x-axis, which is the horizontal axis running at the bottom from left to right. The next thing we need to do, number 5, we need to name the x-axis. We need to give it a heading. So this graph, because it's about the grade 3's favorite color, we would call it color, because we're looking at different colors that the grade 3's would like. The 6th thing we need to fill in is obviously the columns or the bars of different colors. So we would need to count and do a vote and tally it all up, and then we would put that information by coloring in the bars on the graph. And number 7 is the numbers. So on the y-axis, we would need to fill in the numbers, running from 0 in 1s, 2s, 5s, 10s, whatever it might be. Obviously, the bigger the information, the more we will count in. So if we were doing, for example, let's say maybe in the lockdown, we're counting all the COVID-19 cases, we wouldn't go 0, 1, 2, 3, because it's up to 5,000, 6,000 already. So we would maybe count in hundreds or even in thousands to try and show how many cases we have maybe in the different provinces. So it would just depend on how much information we have to decide how many numbers or what numbers we should count in. Alright, so now that we know how a bar graph looks, we need to know how we record the information. So in other words, how do we use a bar graph to find the information that we need? So what information can we get from the graph? So if we use the example of the graph we just did, which is here on the side now, you'll see the y-axis, the x-axis, they're labeled and they have headings. The graph is colored with the little bars for the necessary things, and we have a heading. Now the first thing we can clearly see is that most learners like pink, because we can see it's 8, which is the highest. The least amount of learners like red, because it's the lowest bar and it's only 2. Double the amount of learners like pink than green. So double the amount like pink than green, because the green is only up to 4 and the pink is up to 8, and 4 doubled gives us 8. So pink is double the green learners. Blue is the second favorite color, because 7 learners like blue, which is the second highest bar on our graph. This is how we collect information on a graph. Okay, can you see any other information? Yes, we can. We can count all the bars. If we add blue, red, pink, green, and purple together, we will see that we've got 27 in total. So in other words, that there are 27 learners who voted for this survey for us to get the information. The next type of graph we're going to look at is quite an easy one. It's a pie graph. Now, a pie graph is a circle which is divided into portions or pieces, almost like a pizza, or like the name says, a pie. Although it looks like a pizza, it is not divided into equal parts. In other words, it's not sliced equally, because we're trying to see what's the most, the least, maybe double or half of something. So it can't be all equal, because if we think of an example from maybe the color example on the bar graph, we know that there was more pink than red, so the pieces won't be the same size. So it looks like a pie that just hasn't been cut equally. So if we look at this pie graph example, it's divided into the different kinds of antelope. So the different kinds of antelope that they're looking at is the sable, the waterbuck, a kudu, and an impala. So you will see the sable is in blue because it's the blue piece of the pie graph. The red is the waterbuck, the green is the kudu, and the purple is the impala. So by looking at this pie chart or pie graph, we can clearly see that the purple is the biggest, which shows us that the impala is the biggest group of antelope. So in other words, there are the most impala if we compare them to the other type of antelope that we can find in nature. The last type of graph we'll be looking at is a line graph. Now, a line graph is necessary or needed because we use it to compare information and data that may change from time to time. So in other words, over a certain period of time, we see that there may be a little bit of a change. So then the graph drops a little bit, and then it increases, and then it maybe drops a bit, and then it stays the same, and then it increases. So it changes over time. So financial people, usually people working with finances like in banks, CAs, and those types of people, they work with line graphs, because a lot of the time money and things will change from day to day. So if you think, for example, if you've watched the news, you will see that we compare how much money our rand, the money we use, is compared to, for example, the dollar in America. Then every day it changes. It goes up a little bit or down a little bit, or it stays the same. So over time, if you have to draw a line graph, you will see that it goes up and down, and you can see where it went high, where it went low, to show how it was different over a couple of days, months, weeks, years, whatever. Your timeline, in other words, how much you grow, can also be recorded on a line graph. So if you look at this pink line graph here on the end, you will see that there's curves going up from the side that says length, and then how old you are is at the top. So in other words, when you're born, you have a specific length, and then it goes up, 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 according to this graph. So then they will see, by making little dots at your specific age, how tall or how much you have grown from, for example, when you were born to when you were 3 months, 12 months, 24 months, etc., etc. You can also look at these other graphs. Sometimes we can put more than one thing on a graph. So you will see on the first example, we have company A, which is blue, company B, which is green, and company C, which is yellow. And this is about the amount of waste. In other words, how much rubbish is produced in different companies. So you will see, like for company C, which is yellow, they started off low at only almost about 4 tons of waste, and then each year it increased and increased. But company A and B started high and slowly started to decrease until it went all the way down by the green company. So it shows over time how things change.